Unova's beauty lies in how it hides emotion within machinery. The rotating gears of Nakreen's old power station follow a perfect mechanical rhythm, 8 revolutions, then one slight stutter. The pause was added to make the machine feel alive, a subtle heartbeat beneath iron. The artist said the cycle represented imperfection as proof of life. When walking through the cold air of Issaris City, the snowflakes fall in layers, 3 depths of motion overlapping to create the illusion of wind. The deeper layers drift slower, giving weight to the atmosphere. Each flake vanishes after 32 frames, dissolving just before it would hit the ground snow that never touches the earth, forever suspended in memory. In the Driftvale Drawbridge minigame, the wings you collect fall in arcs based on gravitational force rather than simple animation. That's why each wing curves slightly differently. Their descent follows the same physics as the Pokeballs thrown in battles. The Pokemon musical's piano track changes subtly depending on the number of accessories worn by your partner. With each added item, a faint chord is layered under the melody, transforming the performance's tone without anyone noticing. When the player enters Reversal Mountain, the echo of footsteps doubles for 2 seconds before the background music begins. This was done to create the sensation of your own sound bouncing back, as though the mountain is waiting to respond. Route 5's bridge over the water was built using the same model as Sky Arrow Bridge, scaled down and reversed. Developers said it was an intentional visual rhyme, a reminder that grandeur and simplicity can share the same foundation. Inside the Castelia Gym, honey walls shimmer differently under certain lighting conditions. The reflection changes hue every frame based on your position relative to invisible light sources. The result is that no 2 players ever see the exact same shade of gold, a quiet form of procedural art. In Mistralton's cargo hangar, stacked boxes are labeled FRG-01. It stands for Freight Route Generation 1, a tribute to the franchise's history of journey and trade. Developers said they wanted even mundane details to honor travel itself. The Pokemon Center's healing chime in Unova lasts 1.5 seconds longer than in Sinnoh. The composer described this extension as a breath of comfort, a small reminder that rest takes time. The Pokemon, known for its mask-like face, often found in ruins, has a hidden property. Its shadow in Unova is slightly longer than that of other creatures. This is due to its unique body height being misread by the engine, but it became symbolic, a spirit leaving its mark a little longer than others. The water surface near Undella Town reflects light differently depending on how long the game has been running. After several hours of play, a minor rounding error changes the wave timing, creating a natural shimmer cycle that repeats only after long sessions. It's an unintentional effect that became one of the most beautiful accidental features in the series. At the Pokemon League, when snow drifts across the skybox, each flake's speed is offset by a mathematical function linked to wind direction. The algorithm generates more turbulence near the camera, giving the illusion of depth and chill without needing true 3-dimensional weather. In the Plasma Frigate, the central computer's screen uses binary code that translates to the phrase, "Life is freedom." It flashes once every 10 minutes, far too briefly to be seen without modification, a hidden philosophy pulsing beneath cold steel. Unova's desert storms were built from 6 layers of semi-transparent dust textures. They loop at different speeds to create the illusion of depth. When slowed down in development tools, they look like tides of sand rolling in endless waves. The sound effect for the bicycle bell is higher pitched in Unova than in any other region. It was remixed from the original Kanto sound, but sped up by 4%. The director said it was meant to feel like the wind learning to laugh again. The moving walkway in Nimbasa's amusement park operates on a timer that resets every 52 seconds, perfectly synced with the rotating Ferris wheel's lighting sequence. The synchronization was designed to make the entire park move as one mechanical organism. Route 12's background color fades toward green as you approach the bridge, then warms again as you leave. The color transition was chosen to mirror breath inhalation and exhalation in visual form. In the cold storage facility, boxes are stacked with deliberate imperfection. Some lean slightly off-center, a human touch in an industrial space. The environment artist said he tilted them by hand to let chaos breathe. Every wild Pokémon in Unova has a hidden value representing curiosity. This value determines how quickly it will react when spotted in animations, a system borrowed from an unused behavior prototype in the Safari Zone. It made encounters feel a little less mechanical, a little more alive. The NPCs fishing near Driftvale have rods that bend realistically based on invisible tension. The fishing line's curvature follows the same curve as the DS Stylus arc, a design coincidence that developers later called digital muscle memory. Inside Relic Passage, torches flicker, not from looping animations, but from real random noise patterns, giving each flame a unique rhythm. One developer said he based the flicker code on the random timing of lightning during a thunderstorm he recorded from his balcony. Pokémon centers in Unova contain slightly warmer light near the reception desk. The difference measures only 2% in color saturation, but it makes the area feel like a safe glow amid clinical surroundings. When saving your game, the icon spins at variable speed, depending on frame timing. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes slower, a soft reminder that every moment of rest is unique. In the internal data, Castelia's skyline buildings are labeled numerically from 1 to 72, but the last building's name is 73, a small joke implying that the city will always keep growing. The water reflection in Route 13's bridges refracts with a subtle ripple delay. When you move, the mirrored world lags by half a frame, simulating how light takes time to travel. Unova's night sky contains constellations not seen in any other region. They were hand-drawn by an artist inspired by the view over New York Harbor, positioned carefully so they never repeat exactly on each rotation. The sound of opening a door in Pokémon Black and White is actually layered from two sources, a wooden creak and a low metallic tone blended together. The idea was to suggest doors between past and future, old wood and new steel coexisting. If you surf along Undella Bay at sunset, the reflection of the horizon glows orange for only a few seconds before fading to purple. That moment is hard-coded into the day-night cycle, designed specifically to be impermanent. In Anvil Town, trains rest quietly along unused tracks. Their rusted surfaces reflect warm colors even under the blue sky, a deliberate palette decision to evoke nostalgia. The lead color designer called it a town made of echoes. Pokestar Studios' spotlight effect was created by layering 6 gradients of white and gray. The overlap generates a softness that mimics dust floating in stage lights. Artists described it as the quietest light possible. The map of Unova was drawn from a high angle not to make it look larger, but to emphasize direction. The slope points northeast, guiding the eye toward the player's next destination subconsciously. On the Sky Arrow Bridge, the sound of footsteps changes pitch depending on speed. Slow walking creates a gentle tap, while running deepens it slightly. The variation was recorded using two real metal gratings, one from a factory and one from an art museum walkway. When the player heals at a Pokémon Center, a tiny delay occurs before the chime begins. That pause was intentional, the equivalent of the nurse taking a breath before speaking, a moment of human timing preserved in code. Unova's sense of harmony comes from contrast, every moment of silence shaped by the noise surrounding it. The region was designed as a living city dreaming of nature, a place where every hum, shimmer, and breath carries the memory of both. It's the sound of the modern world learning to be gentle again. Unova's story begins and ends with reflection. In Nuvema Town, the water near the pier mirrors clouds that drift slower than those in the sky. The illusion is built from a half-speed animation loop, making the reflection always feel one moment behind the past, chasing the present across calm water. The sound of tall grass rustling in Unova was created from recordings of actual leaves brushed by nylon strings. Each playback shifts randomly by a few milliseconds, giving every step a unique whisper. The sound engineer described it as walking through breathing plants. At the Pokémon League, the stained glass windows filter light in distinct colors: red, blue, green, and gold. The hues match the types of the Elite Four's signature teams, meaning the sunlight that falls on the floor carries traces of their battles long before you ever face them. In the black and white title screen, particles float upward across the logo. Each spark lasts 120 frames before fading, a cycle that subtly speeds up if the player lingers. It was programmed to feel like excitement rising, even in stillness. Unova's forests hum differently depending on weather. During rain, the insect background track cuts out, replaced by low, soft drumming that echoes the rhythm of falling drops. This simple switch was meant to represent nature holding its breath, listening to the sound of water. The subway announcer's voice in the Battle Subway has a real-world origin. It was voiced by a Game Freak staff member whose day job was sound editing. His slightly imperfect cadence was kept on purpose. Developers said they preferred the warmth of an untrained voice. Inside Opelucid City's museum, some fossils are arranged in spirals rather than lines. This was the director's personal touch, a reference to the Fibonacci sequence that inspired the region's balance of logic and emotion. When you visit the interior of Twist Mountain, a low rumble plays continuously. It isn't random noise, it's a slowed version of the thunder sample from Route 7. The idea was that storms above ground echo deep into the earth, connecting sky and stone. Unova's seasons system changes more than just color and weather. Certain wild Pokémon have subtly altered encounter messages that reference the month. A creature that drifted down with the leaves in autumn might instead be warming itself in the sun come spring. The small text changes make the region feel alive through language as much as visuals. In Nimbasa's Ferris wheel, the camera movement follows a mathematical easing curve that mimics gentle rocking. This same motion was later reused for clouds in later generations, a motion so natural that even designers described it as code that learned to breathe. The Dream World's theme music uses reversed piano notes blended with flute to create an otherworldly tone. The melody loops every 88 seconds, mirroring the number of keys on a piano, the boundary between imagination and structure. In Castelia City's alleyways, puddles reflect the skyline at slightly darker contrast than reality. This was meant to symbolize how dreams of the city always appear a little heavier when remembered. Route 10's theme was the last piece of music written for the region. Its composer called it the sound of arrival, meaning not a destination, but the moment you realize you've already come far enough. The bridge between Unova's twin versions, the ancient and modern city, glows differently under each moon phase. This detail wasn't documented anywhere. It's a hidden lighting trick that connects the two games through time. When a Pokémon uses the move Fly at Dusk, the background gradient fades more slowly than at any other time of day. Developers said it was their favorite effect because it captures the last hesitation before leaving the ground. Inside Driftvale's cold storage building, the frost texture was designed from photographs of condensation on glass. When converted to pixel format, it created fractal-like frost veins that mimic ice crystals forming in real time. At the Pokémon Center in Nakreen, the bookshelf beside the nurse counter holds a tiny book sprite labeled G2010. It stands for Game Freak 2010, the year the scriptwriter finished the story draft. The texture was added as a time capsule. Unova's Pokédex background scrolls infinitely if you edit its code to remove boundaries. There's no programmed end, only repeated gradient, symbolizing knowledge without limits. The Unova region map has a small, unmarked island far beyond its edges, hidden behind a blank texture. It's empty, unreachable, and unnamed, just a piece of data left from early ocean testing, a ghost of geography that never became story. Pokémon centers in Black 2 and White 2 have extra wall lights not found in the originals. The bulbs glow orange rather than white, subtly warming the environment. Developers said it was to represent healing through familiarity, the gentle comfort of returning to something known. When the player surfs at night near Undella Bay, a second layer of water transparency activates, revealing dark shadows beneath the waves. These forms have no collision or model data, they're only darkness moving like memory. The Pokémon World Tournament's crowd animations reuse an early test sprite from Ruby and Sapphire's contest audiences. Developers kept it as a hidden homage to the franchise's shared heritage, a small reminder that every generation stands on the last. The Sky Arrow Bridge theme was composed before the bridge itself was finished. Musicians were asked to imagine the longest breath between steps. The tempo syncs perfectly with the bridge's walking speed, turning travel into melody, a slow waltz with the horizon. In the Dream Yard, petals that float across the screen are coded to spin differently on each visit. The spin direction is determined by the console's real-time clock. That means no two players ever see identical patterns. Dreams, by design, could never be repeated. The Pokémon centers in Unova have translucent roof tiles that brighten slightly whenever you enter from outside. This is caused by a fade script that mimics your eyes adjusting to light, turning a routine action into a sensory illusion. The drift of clouds on Route 7 isn't random either. The parallax layers move faster the higher you climb on Celestial Tower's path, as if the air itself were thinning. The farther you ascend, the more the clouds seem to chase you, faith-coded into weather. Every Elite Four room in Unova was themed after the concept of the human spirit rather than elements. Chantal's ghost chamber represents imagination, Grimsley's darkness symbolizes chance, Caitlin's psychic aura embodies introspection, and Marshall's fighting domain expresses perseverance. Together, they form the cycle of creativity, luck, awareness, and strength, the traits every traveler carries. The subway tunnels beneath Nimbasa use color-coded lights: blue for incoming trains, red for departures. These lights flicker every 10 frames, slightly out of sync, imitating real transit rhythm. The lead lighting artist said he spent hours watching Metro videos just to get the heartbeat right. Unova's rivers run west to east, a first for the series. Developers said it was a metaphor life, flowing toward the sunrise, not away from it. It's why bridges always face the morning light during cutscenes. Inside Opelucid City, the music changes based on the game version. In one, it's calm and traditional. In the other, futuristic and electronic. This was done to symbolize two eras coexisting, a city both past and future. The composer said he wanted players to feel the sound of history arguing with tomorrow. The Pokémon Pokestar Studios building features posters referencing fictional movies that never existed. Each one includes a hidden texture name beginning with DTV, short for Dreams to Visuals. That was the project's code name before localization art as Living Imagination. Route 12's reeds sway individually using an algorithm that calculates wind from your walking speed. The faster you move, the more the reeds bend, as if nature acknowledges your presence. In the Castelia Gym, the honey walls pulse faintly before you touch them. That pulsing rhythm isn't decorative, it matches the tempo of the gym's soundtrack, synchronizing movement and music to mimic the hum of a hive. Reversal Mountain's mirrored layout in different versions wasn't just artistic, it reflected Unova's duality. Fire and water, calm and chaos, two states of balance. The developers said it symbolized the two halves of one breath. The abyssal ruins contain coded text written in a stylized alphabet. When translated, one of the phrases reads, "Our king will return riding wind." That line was added after the main story was finished, meant as an echo of lingering faith in forgotten myths. In Undella Town, the sound of waves plays slightly off-beat, one rhythm faster than its loop. This creates a gentle unease, like listening to the ocean breathe differently from your heart. It's a lullaby that never lands perfectly on time. The Pokémon musical's spotlight animation fades with a crosswave curve, a non-linear fade that causes lights to flicker softly at the edges. The lighting engineer described it as stage dust, designed to make performances feel lived in. Nimbasa's amusement park is filled with invisible hitboxes that make NPCs slightly slow down near certain rides. It gives the illusion that the crowd is stopping to look, small pauses that make the world feel aware of its own wonder. The Relic Passage shares its background noise with Chargestone Cave, but adds an extra echo layer. That reverb lengthens with distance from the player's starting point, a metaphor for the deepening past. The farther you go, the longer memories linger. Route 9's biker gang has dialogue that changes if you return months later. They talk about rumors of new challengers and missing members, subtle narrative growth hidden outside the story. Developers said these micro-updates were meant to simulate gossip, the heartbeat of cities. When you step onto the plasma frigate, the metallic hum underneath the soundtrack isn't music but environmental vibration. The team used deep bass resonance to simulate an engine's thrum, a subconscious reminder that technology has its own pulse. Each wild encounter in Unova's tall grass lasts slightly longer in animations than previous generations. The fade-in and fade-out were extended by 1 second total to give battles a sense of weight tension built from stillness. The drift of leaves in autumn on Route 6 follows a randomized parabolic path. The same leaf sprite can fall 3 times in a row, but never exactly the same way. Programmers referred to this as chaotic peace, nature imitating chance. In the Pokémon Center Cafe, a background hum of quiet chatter loops every 48 seconds. The voices were recorded from real Game Freak staff during a break, immortalized as the region's ambient warmth. Castelia's skyline includes a single building with a rooftop garden, That rooftop isn't accessible, but its texture contains miniature flowers that bloom differently depending on season. It's a secret garden built for no one, existing only as proof of beauty in unreachable places. Every Unova city map includes a line of symmetry through its center north to south. This alignment allows clouds, roads, and rivers to appear balanced when viewed from above, a design principle drawn from aerial photography of real metropolitan layouts. At night, in the outer fields of Route 5, the game adds a faint chorus sound layered beneath the crickets. The sound designer said it was meant to make nature feel holy. Is Rihanna's? Even the save icon in Unova's interface holds meaning. Its spinning Pokeball is slightly slower than in prior generations. That pause between rotations mirrors the pacing of the entire game, slower, more thoughtful, a journey that lingers on moments. Unova was never meant to feel perfect. It was designed to feel alive, flawed, noisy, filled with intersections where stories meet. Behind every building, wind hums against glass, carrying whispers of people who never speak aloud. Every detail, every particle of dust, was placed to make the region feel real enough to dream inside. Unova's world was built on rhythm, the movement of trains, the sway of bridges, the heartbeat of machines breathing under the sky. Nowhere is this more evident than in Gear Station, where the turnstiles spin to the same tempo as the ambient music. Each click you hear while walking aligns perfectly with the drum beat. The composers said they wanted the city to walk in time with you. The fountains in Castilia's main plaza were animated using the same frame timing as the rain from Route 6. The connection wasn't accidental. Both were coded from one water script reused across environments. The idea was to make every droplet in Unova feel like it came from a single, shared atmosphere. If you stand still long enough on the Sky Arrow Bridge, seagulls occasionally cross the screen. There are exactly 7 flight paths, each triggered randomly between 30 and 60 seconds apart. No two crossings are identical, mimicking real birds reacting to unseen wind. In the Royal Unova cruise ship, every dining table has its own sound field. When the player moves between them, the audio pans slightly left or right, as if you were hearing conversations fade into the distance. This was one of the earliest uses of directional ambience in a Pokémon game. Unova's forests follow a unique design language. The canopy shadows are rendered one layer deeper than any prior region, creating the illusion of moving clouds. During development, the artists used real-time reference videos of sunlight passing through Central Park trees. The result is a forest that feels alive even when you stand still. The Pokémon, known for spinning like gears, were animated with real rotational velocity calculations. The motion is physically accurate. Every turn has mass. The animator said he wanted them to look not like machines pretending to live, but life pretending to be machines. Driftvale Drawbridge hides something tiny but elegant. The Pokémon that appear as shadows flying overhead aren't random species. They're chosen based on weather and season, a micro-simulation of migration that continues even while players walk below. The interior of Mistralton Gym was designed as a study of airflow. Every fan turns at a speed based on your proximity to it. Step closer and the sound deepens. Walk away and the pitch lifts. The subtle Doppler effect creates a sense that wind itself is watching you. In Lentimus Town, the volcanic ash on the ground has 3 shades layered in transparent patterns. This was done to make it shimmer like powdered glass under sunlight. The texture artist said it represented memory buried under fire. The Pokemon World Tournament announcer's voice changes slightly when you battle for a long time. After 10 consecutive matches, his tone becomes calmer and his pacing slows, a hidden nod to fatigue not in the characters, but in the voice of competition itself. The interior of the Pokemon League was built around a golden ratio spiral. If you trace the walkway leading to the champion, it curves perfectly through mathematically balanced proportions. The architect who modeled it said it was designed for the eyes to rest while moving. Every town in Unova has its own ambient noise level, measured in decibels relative to the DS's speaker output. The loudest environment is Castelia City at simulated 65 decibels. The quietest is Isiris at 38. The difference is subtle but perceptible, a world of volume and silence breathing together. The in-game cameras that appear in PokeStar Studios were based on real film equipment. The textures use miniature labels reading DSC 2000, an inside joke referencing the console itself. Developers said it was their way of acknowledging the medium, a game inside a movie, inside a handheld. When you visit the Celestial Tower, the bells that ring during prayer sequences follow harmonic intervals based on real church tones from Sapporo Cathedral. The sound designers slowed them slightly to make them feel distant, as if the air carried weight. The battle interface color in Unova pale gray rather than bright white was chosen because the team noticed that most players were playing at night. The softer contrast reduced eye strain and subconsciously encouraged relaxation during long sessions. Inside Route 7's houses, clocks tick 2 frames slower than those in the main cities. The delay was inserted to create a sense of calm in rural areas. It's a detail no one was expected to notice, but one that makes the world breathe more slowly when you're away from the noise. The Pokemon with musical motifs, like Meloetta, use more complex sound coding than others. Their cries include extra harmonics that shift in pitch if the DS's audio latency changes. The composer described this as a song that reshapes itself to stay in tune. In Village Bridge, the distant singing you hear at night isn't part of the background music. It's a separate audio file triggered by invisible NPCs playing unseen instruments. Each voice corresponds to a specific layer of the soundtrack bass, harmony, or rhythm, creating a seamless live performance that never truly begins or ends. The bridge itself was modeled from actual engineering blueprints. Its curvature and suspension match those of a real cable-stay design scaled down to handheld dimensions. The developers said it symbolized connection held by tension. The shopping mall on Route 9 includes a shelf with unreadable price tags. Under magnification, the digits spell 2011, the year of the game's worldwide release, a quiet signature from the developers. When Pokemon sleep in Unova's daycare, the animation cycles are longer than in Sinnoh. Each breathing loop lasts 8 seconds instead of 5. That slower rhythm was meant to make even rest feel deliberate. The caves under Twist Mountain emit a faint hum that oscillates at precisely 60 Hz, the same frequency as electrical current. The audio team used it as a symbol of human intrusion into natural space, the modern world resonating underground. On Route 10, a series of wind turbines appear near the edge of the map. They were added not for mechanics, but for perspective. Objects moving in the distance give players a subconscious sense of scale, making the sky feel wider. The Pokemon storage system in Unova has one background theme in a minor key that triggers randomly. Only 1 in 20 players ever hears it. The composer wrote it as the sound of forgotten data. During winter, snow footprints persist longer the farther north you travel. The persistence timer is determined by map ID, creating the illusion that colder air preserves memory better than warm ground. In Driftvale City's harbor, if you stand near the pier for more than a minute, a ship horn will sound from far away. The audio fades in with Doppler shift, then out again an invisible vessel passing in silence. It's one of the loneliest, most beautiful touches in any Pokémon region. The Pokémon Center nurse's dialogue font was slightly bolded in black and white compared to previous games. This was done for accessibility on the DS's brighter screens, but it also gives her words more presence, kindness delivered with clarity. The Plasma Frigate's deck glows faintly blue under certain angles because its reflection shader uses the same spectral values as moonlight. The visual artist said he wanted it to feel like the sea remembering the stars. The dream world's cloud patterns were painted by hand, then mirrored algorithmically to create infinite sky. Every swirl you see on that interface was once a brush stroke made by a single artist. The credits of black and white include silhouettes of Pokémon that change depending on your starter choice. It's one of the rare times the ending adapts to personal memory, letting your journey shape its own reflection. In Nimbasa's subway station, the benches are arranged in a Fibonacci curve 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, a natural pattern hidden in architecture. The lead designer said it was proof that even chaos has rhythm. The Pokémon World Tournament reuses a small particle effect from the opening scene of Pokémon Ranger. It flashes across the screen when applause peaks, as if history itself were clapping quietly in the background. Unova's forests use a different ambient insect track depending on the time of night. Before midnight, the pitch is higher and active. After, it drops lower and slower. It's as if even the crickets fall asleep with you. The data for the move Fly in Unova includes a new line of code referencing cloud density. When the weather is clear, the transition animation brightens slightly faster, symbolizing effortless flight. In Castelia City's central fountain, coins glimmer beneath the water. Each coin sprite spins individually, their reflections timed to shimmer on alternating beats, with the music's small glints of rhythm beneath serenity. Unova, for all its movement, feels like a dream suspended between eras, the past whispering through new glass towers. Every wind current, every reflection, seems to remember something the player has forgotten. Beneath its noise lies silence, a reminder that even the busiest worlds have room for sleep. Unova's beauty lies in how it hides emotion within machinery. The rotating gears of Nakreen's old power station follow a perfect mechanical rhythm. 8 revolutions, then 1 slight stutter. The pause was added to make the machine feel alive, a subtle heartbeat beneath iron. The artist said the cycle represented imperfection as proof of life. When walking through the cold air of Isra City, the snowflakes fall in layers, 3 depths of motion overlapping to create the illusion of wind. The deeper layers drift slower, giving weight to the atmosphere. Each flake vanishes after 32 frames, dissolving just before it would hit the ground snow that never touches the earth, forever suspended in memory. In the Driftvale Drawbridge minigame, the wings you collect fall in arcs based on gravitational force rather than simple animation. That's why each wing curves slightly differently. Their descent follows the same physics as the Pokeballs thrown in battles. The Pokémon musical's piano track changes subtly depending on the number of accessories worn by your partner. With each added item, a faint chord is layered under the melody, transforming the performance's tone without anyone noticing. When the player enters Reversal Mountain, the echo of footsteps doubles for 2 seconds before the background music begins. This was done to create the sensation of your own sound bouncing back, as though the mountain is waiting to respond. Route 5's bridge over the water was built using the same model as Sky Arrow Bridge, scaled down and reversed. Developers said it was an intentional visual rhyme, a reminder that grandeur and simplicity can share the same foundation. Inside the Castelia gym, honey walls shimmer differently under certain lighting conditions. The reflection changes hue every frame based on your position relative to invisible light sources. The result is that no two players ever see the exact same shade of gold, a quiet form of procedural art. In Mistralton's cargo hangar, stacked boxes are labeled FRG-01. It stands for Freight Route Generation 1, a tribute to the franchise's history of journey and trade. Developers said they wanted even mundane details to honor travel itself. The Pokémon Center's healing chime in Unova lasts 1.5 seconds longer than in Sinnoh. The composer described this extension as a breath of comfort, a small reminder that rest takes time. The Pokémon, known for its mask-like face, often found in ruins, has a hidden property. Its shadow in Unova is slightly longer than that of other creatures. This is due to its unique body height being misread by the engine, but it became symbolic, a spirit leaving its mark a little longer than others. The water surface near Undella Town reflects light differently depending on how long the game has been running. After several hours of play, a minor rounding error changes the wave timing, creating a natural shimmer cycle that repeats only after long sessions. It's an unintentional effect that became one of the most beautiful accidental features in the series. At the Pokémon League, when snow drifts across the skybox, each flake's speed is offset by a mathematical function linked to wind direction. The algorithm generates more turbulence near the camera, giving the illusion of depth and chill without needing true three-dimensional weather. In the Plasma Frigate, the central computer's screen uses binary code that translates to the phrase, "Life is freedom." It flashes once every 10 minutes, far too briefly to be seen without modification, a hidden philosophy pulsing beneath cold steel. Unova's desert storms were built from 6 layers of semi-transparent dust textures. They loop at different speeds to create the illusion of depth. When slowed down in development tools, they look like tides of sand rolling in endless waves. The sound effect for the bicycle bell is higher pitched in Unova than in any other region. It was remixed from the original Kanto sound, but sped up by 4%. The director said it was meant to feel like the wind learning to laugh again. The moving walkway in Nimbasa's amusement park operates on a timer that resets every 52 seconds, perfectly synced with the rotating Ferris wheel's lighting sequence. The synchronization was designed to make the entire park move as one mechanical organism. Route 12's background color fades toward green as you approach the bridge, then warms again as you leave. The color transition was chosen to mirror breath inhalation and exhalation in visual form. In the cold storage facility, boxes are stacked with deliberate imperfection. Some lean slightly off-center, a human touch in an industrial space. The environment artist said he tilted them by hand to let chaos breathe. Every wild Pokémon in Unova has a hidden value representing curiosity. This value determines how quickly it will react when spotted in animations, a system borrowed from an unused behavior prototype in the Safari Zone. It made encounters feel a little less mechanical, a little more alive. The NPCs fishing near Driftvale have rods that bend realistically based on invisible tension. The fishing line's curvature follows the same curve as the DS Stylus arc, a design coincidence that developers later called digital muscle memory. Inside Relic Passage, Torches flicker, not from looping animations, but from real random noise patterns, giving each flame a unique rhythm. One developer said he based the flicker code on the random timing of lightning during a thunderstorm he recorded from his balcony. Pokémon centers in Unova contain slightly warmer light near the reception desk. The difference measures only 2% in color saturation, but it makes the area feel like a safe glow amid clinical surroundings. When saving your game, the icon spins at variable speed, depending on frame timing. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes slower, a soft reminder that every moment of rest is unique. In the internal data, Castalia's skyline buildings are labeled numerically from 1 to 72, but the last building's name is 73, a small joke implying that the city will always keep growing. The water reflection in Route 13's bridges refracts with a subtle ripple delay. When you move, the mirrored world lags by half a frame, simulating how light takes time to travel. Unova's night sky contains constellations not seen in any other region. They were hand-drawn by an artist inspired by the view over New York Harbor, positioned carefully so they never repeat exactly on each rotation. The sound of opening a door in Pokémon Black and White is actually layered from two sources, a wooden creak and a low metallic tone blended together. The idea was to suggest doors between past and future, old wood and new steel coexisting. If you surf along Undella Bay at sunset, the reflection of the horizon glows orange for only a few seconds before fading to purple. That moment is hard-coded into the day-night cycle, designed specifically to be impermanent. In Anvil Town, trains rest quietly along unused tracks. Their rusted surfaces reflect warm colors even under the blue sky, a deliberate palette decision to evoke nostalgia. The lead color designer called it a town made of echoes. Pokestar Studios' spotlight effect was created by layering 6 gradients of white and gray. The overlap generates a softness that mimics dust floating in stage lights. Artists described it as the quietest light possible. The map of Unova was drawn from a high angle not to make it look larger, but to emphasize direction. The slope points northeast, guiding the eye toward the player's next destination subconsciously. On the Sky Arrow Bridge, the sound of footsteps changes pitch depending on speed. Slow walking creates a gentle tap, while running deepens it slightly. The variation was recorded using 2 real metal gratings, one from a factory and one from an art museum walkway. When the player heals at a Pokémon Center, a tiny delay occurs before the chime begins. That pause was intentional, the equivalent of the nurse taking a breath before speaking, a moment of human timing preserved in code. Unova's sense of harmony comes from contrast, every moment of silence shaped by the noise surrounding it. The region was designed as a living city dreaming of nature, a place where every hum, shimmer, and breath carries the memory of both. It's the sound of the modern world learning to be gentle again. Unova's story begins and ends with reflection. In Nuvema Town, the water near the pier mirrors clouds that drift slower than those in the sky. The illusion is built from a half-speed animation loop, making the reflection always feel one moment behind the past, chasing the present across calm water. The sound of tall grass rustling in Unova was created from recordings of actual leaves brushed by nylon strings. Each playback shifts randomly by a few milliseconds, giving every step a unique whisper. The sound engineer described it as walking through breathing plants. At the Pokémon League, the stained glass windows filter light in distinct colors: red, blue, green, and gold. The hues match the types of the Elite Four's signature teams, meaning the sunlight that falls on the floor carries traces of their battles long before you ever face them. In the black and white title screen, particles float upward across the logo. Each spark lasts 120 frames before fading, a cycle that subtly speeds up if the player lingers. It was programmed to feel like excitement rising, even in stillness. Unova's forests hum differently depending on weather. During rain, the insect background track cuts out, replaced by low, soft drumming that echoes the rhythm of falling drops. This simple switch was meant to represent nature holding its breath, listening to the sound of water. The subway announcer's voice in the battle subway has a real-world origin. It was voiced by a Game Freak staff member whose day job was sound editing. His slightly imperfect cadence was kept on purpose. Developers said they preferred the warmth of an untrained voice. Inside Opelucid City's museum, some fossils are arranged in spirals rather than lines. This was the director's personal touch, a reference to the Fibonacci sequence that inspired the region's balance of logic and emotion. When you visit the interior of Twist Mountain, a low rumble plays continuously. It isn't random noise, it's a slowed version of the thunder sample from Route 7. The idea was that storms above ground echo deep into the earth, connecting sky and stone. Unova's seasons system changes more than just color and weather. Certain wild Pokémon have subtly altered encounter messages that reference the month. A creature that drifted down with the leaves in autumn might instead be warming itself in the sun come spring. The small text changes make the region feel alive through language as much as visuals. In Nimbasa's Ferris wheel, the camera movement follows a mathematical easing curve that mimics gentle rocking. This same motion was later reused for clouds in later generations, a motion so natural that even designers described it as code that learned to breathe. The Dream World's theme music uses reversed piano notes blended with flute to create an otherworldly tone. The melody loops every 88 seconds, mirroring the number of keys on a piano, the boundary between imagination and structure. In Castelia City's alleyways, puddles reflect the skyline at slightly darker contrast than reality. This was meant to symbolize how dreams of the city always appear a little heavier when remembered. Route 10's theme was the last piece of music written for the region. Its composer called it the sound of arrival, meaning not a destination, but the moment you realize you've already come far enough. The bridge between Unova's twin versions, the ancient and modern city, glows differently under each moon phase. This detail wasn't documented anywhere. It's a hidden lighting trick that connects the two games through time. When a Pokémon uses the move Fly at Dusk, the background gradient fades more slowly than at any other time of day. Developers said it was their favorite effect because it captures the last hesitation before leaving the ground. Inside Driftvale's cold storage building, the frost texture was designed from photographs of condensation on glass. When converted to pixel format, it created fractal-like frost veins that mimic ice crystals forming in real time. At the Pokémon Center in Nakreen, the bookshelf beside the nurse counter holds a tiny book sprite labeled G2010. It stands for Game Freak 2010, the year the scriptwriter finished the story draft. The texture was added as a time capsule. Unova's Pokédex background scrolls infinitely if you edit its code to remove boundaries. There's no programmed end, only repeated gradient, symbolizing knowledge without limits. The Unova region map has a small, unmarked island far beyond its edges, hidden behind a blank texture. It's empty, unreachable, and unnamed, just a piece of data left from early ocean testing, a ghost of geography that never became story. Pokemon centers in Black 2 and White 2 have extra wall lights not found in the originals. The bulbs glow orange rather than white, subtly warming the environment. Developers said it was to represent healing through familiarity, the gentle comfort of returning to something known. When the player surfs at night near Undella Bay, a second layer of water transparency activates, revealing dark shadows beneath the waves. These forms have no collision or model data, they're only darkness moving like memory. The badge case interior was designed to resemble the shape of a feather, referencing flight and progress. Every badge sparkles differently depending on your playtime, an effect determined by the console clock. The final scene after defeating the champion shows you walking into white light. That fade out uses a curve mathematically similar to sunrise, accelerating slowly before blooming into brightness. It was the last function written for the ending sequence, labeled Morning Begins. The ice pillars in the Pokemon League's main hall cast shadows that stretch toward the player's feet. It's the only place in Unova where shadows move forward instead of backward, a detail meant to show that you're walking into destiny, not away from it. When you first reach Route 1, the wind gusts include faint chime sounds buried deep in the audio mix. They're the same tones used in the menu theme, recontextualized as nature's music, a connection between journey and rest. The underwater tunnel that connects the two halves of Unova was initially meant to include reflections of Pokemon swimming above. Hardware limitations prevented it, but remnants of their code remain. The internal file is called Ghostfish, a poetic name for something never seen. Every battle arena in Unova uses background color palettes tuned to your Pokemon's primary type. The shift is nearly invisible, but ensures harmony between creature and setting a hidden layer of visual calm. The Pokemon storage wallpaper themes correspond to constellations. The night sky pattern, when connected through coordinates, forms an invisible drawing of the same region's shape, as if the stars themselves were tracing home. The musician in the Cafe of Nimbasa will nod slightly if you talk to him multiple times in a row. It's not random, he has a memory flag that triggers acknowledgement after 3 greetings, simulating real social familiarity. At Castilia's docks, a faint sound of gulls can be heard before sunrise, but not after. Developers said it was their nod to morning, the world stretching before it wakes. Unova's subway lights fade off in waves when power is lost in cutscenes. The fade pattern was inspired by rolling blackouts in Tokyo during the mid-2000s, the city dimming one block at a time. The season system includes more than weather and terrain. Even the tone of the overworld's shadows changes slightly, with spring being softer and winter sharper. This was done to mimic the low angle of sunlight found at different times of year. The Pokemon Daycare's grass fence curves slightly toward the road, forming a concave arc when seen from above. The lead designer said it represented the world leaning in to listen. In Nova's internal developer documentation, one phrase appears repeatedly in design notes: life will move. It was the guiding principle behind every element, the reason gears turn, bridges sway, and even cities breathe. The region was never meant to be static, it was meant to live. When the credits end, the camera pans upward into the clouds. Those clouds move faster than any in the series, as if time itself has exhaled. The last light fades into soft blue, neither day nor night, the eternal hour of Unova. And then there is stillness. The trains rest, the wind slows, the skyline reflects against calm rivers. Every sound softens until all that remains is a faint hum, like the world dreaming beneath its own heartbeat. Somewhere beyond the bridge, Another story waits to begin. But for now, Unova sleeps the city that learned how to be quiet. When the world of Unova sleeps, its stories don't end, they just sink a little deeper, settling between the gears and glow of its cities. In the quiet plains outside Castelia, the streetlights dim one by one, each powered by invisible timers hidden beneath the pavement. The lights fade in a wave from east to west, matching the angle of sunrise the following morning. The engineer who designed them said it was to remind the city to bow to the sun, even in darkness. The musical theater in Nimbasa holds a subtle trick within its stage lighting. When certain combinations of accessories are worn, the spotlights brighten at precise moments of the melody. The system reads hidden flags inside the costume data, turning fashion into rhythm. The Pokémon itself becomes part of the music. A file in the game's sound library contains an unused track labeled Evening Breeze. It's a slowed-down remix of the Pokémon Center theme, written to play only after midnight. The feature was cut before release, but the file remains, still waiting for a moment of peace that never came. In the sewers beneath Castelia, water flows at 3 different speeds: surface, midstream, and base, controlled by tiny invisible wind currents coded into the map. The purpose was realism, but developers later said it represented the layers of a city's heart, all moving but never touching. The Pokémon World Tournament's crowd noise is unique. Unlike other cheering loops, it fades every 64 seconds before restarting, allowing the silence between bursts to feel like real breath. The cheering you hear isn't endless, it rests, like an audience holding its excitement in waves. Join Avenue's shopkeepers. Each have an invisible mood value that changes when you visit. Over time, this affects their speech tone, softening it as friendship grows. Developers included the system as a secret kindness, a way for even shopkeepers to feel alive. The Ferris wheel in Nimbasa slows imperceptibly after each revolution. The cycle time increases by a fraction so small that only long recordings can prove it. The mechanical drift wasn't intentional, but the director left it in, saying, "Even machines get tired." In Undella Town, the ocean's horizon glows faintly violet just before sunrise. That shade doesn't exist anywhere else in the region. It's a custom gradient built for the reflection of a dawn that players might never wait to see. A tiny house near La Cunosa hides a single framed photo of a night sky. If examined at a certain pixel-perfect angle, the stars shimmer faintly. The effect was unlisted in the design notes, and no one knows who added it. Some believe it was a silent thank you from a developer to the players who still explore forgotten corners. Inside the Royal Unova, every window reflects the opposite skyline. The city seen through the glass isn't the real Castelia. It's an inverted model built to move in the opposite direction, creating the illusion of water between two worlds. In the dream yard, after the story ends, the leaves near the ruins rustle when the player passes, even though there's no visible wind. The animation plays only once per session, a ghost of activity meant to suggest something still lingers beneath the stone. The music that plays in the Pokémon World Tournament's lobby shares the same key signature as the ending theme of the main story. This wasn't coincidence. The composer said it symbolized legacy, how every battle echoes from those before it. Unova's weather system is based on calendar months, but it also has a hidden mechanic tied to the console's internal clock speed. If your system runs slower due to battery wear, the storms pass more slowly, stretching the rhythm of rain. It's an unplanned poetic flaw, time itself softening through age. When you walk through the ruins of the desert resort, each step kicks up dust particles that swirl clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on the game version. The small change was meant to make each story feel like its own wind. The reflection in the Ferris wheel glass actually fades a frame before your sprite does, creating a faint ghost double that disappears into the skyline. The artist called it the spirit of the view. In Lentimus Town, the ash that drifts through the air is not random. It's arranged in fractal motion patterns to imitate real volcanic dust behavior, spiraling outward, then in again, as if the world breathes through the mountains. The color of Driftvale's sunset changes subtly when your Pokemon's friendship level is high. The warmth of the sky deepens by 1%, imperceptible but coded. It's one of the few moments where affection literally brightens the world. The abandoned subway line beneath Gear Station has tracks that extend endlessly into darkness. Developers confirmed the tunnels were deliberately looped so that no mod could find an end. They wanted the world to feel infinite, even where it couldn't be seen. The light beams in the Relic Castle originate from outside the map, placed beyond player reach. The glow enters through walls that technically don't exist. The artist said the light should come from somewhere forgotten. In the ruins near Undella, where the sea meets stone, a faint metallic hum plays when the tide rolls in. It's almost inaudible but detectable in the audio files. The sound is from slowed-down chimes, meant to represent memory washing ashore. Unova's Pokemarts have a tiny extra sound layered into their theme, a bell at the start of each loop that strikes at exactly 808 Hz. It's the same frequency as the tone used in the original Game Boy startup sound, hidden nostalgia ringing behind commerce. The cold air of Isurus changes footstep sounds depending on temperature. In snow, the crunch plays a different sample every fifth step, randomized to break rhythm, so the path feels infinite. In Nakreen's museum, a hidden text ID references Display 223. No such display exists. The number matches a date, February 23rd, the birthday of one of the artists. The Royal Unova sails only at dusk because that's when the reflection of the setting sun aligns perfectly across the water, hiding the lower resolution model beneath the surface, a trick of light that keeps illusion flawless. Unova's Pokédex sorting code lists all creatures by their internal development ID rather than national order. This subtle difference causes certain species to appear out of sequence, a leftover from the earliest alpha build, when the region was still called Project Gray. In Castelia's art gallery, the curator's dialogue changes if you revisit after defeating the champion. His tone becomes nostalgic, and his words shift slightly from pride to gratitude, an unannounced nod to growth and perspective. During a thunderstorm on Route 7, lightning strikes trigger not just light, but dynamic reverb in the background music. Each flash momentarily deepens the soundscape, like the world expanding for a second. The Relic Passage tunnels hum with faint sound cues tied to your movement speed. Walk slowly, and the echo is soft. Run, and the hum sharpens. It's an adaptive ambient layer, the cave singing to your pace. Unova's internal map texture names still include the prefix NY, a reference to New York City, the real-world inspiration for its geography. Even after years of updates, the initials never changed. When you speak to NPCs during rainfall, their dialogue boxes have slightly dimmer borders. It's not a weather effect, it's a mood filter meant to simulate the way colors mute under overcast skies. The end credits of Black 2 and White 2 use a unique fade curve, never reused in any later game. The fade ends one frame before total black, leaving a ghostly shimmer behind a mathematical imperfection turned into poetry. If the player remains idle on Route 9, the distant hum of engines fades into silence, replaced by faint wind. This was the composer's idea of rest cities, breathing out once humans stop moving. At the edge of the dream yard, where grass has overgrown the cracked stones, the air hums faintly. The sound is not wind, it's the ghost of an unused audio channel left active in the game's memory, a synthetic heartbeat pulsing quietly beneath silence. Developers described it as data dreaming. In the forests around Pinwheel, wildflowers bloom in groups of 5, but only 4 ever face the camera. The 5th always points away, a deliberate asymmetry to make the scene feel natural. When slowed down in debug mode, you can see the 5th flower rotate a fraction of a degree, as if turning shyly toward the wind. The music for the entree forest in black and white uses no percussion at all. It was composed entirely from reversed woodwind and bell samples, chosen to sound like a lullaby that forgot its rhythm. The composer said it was meant to feel half remembered, half invented. In Driftvale City, the sound of footsteps on metal bridges includes an echo that grows slightly deeper every 5 steps. The algorithm measures player distance and increases reverb delay gradually, mimicking the way sound would deepen under large metal arches. If you save the game inside the Celestial Tower and reload immediately, the bell sound in the background plays 1 note higher than usual for just a few seconds. The reason is a memory overflow error, but fans like to imagine it's a blessing from the tower itself. The waterfall near Village Bridge doesn't loop perfectly. Its rhythm has a small irregularity, 3 extra frames of silence between repeats, which gives the impression of living water instead of mechanical flow. Join Avenue's background music uses different instruments depending on the number of visitors you've helped. When your popularity reaches a hidden threshold, the flutes fade and soft piano replaces them, symbolizing the quiet comfort of familiarity. The building shadows in Castelia City were hand-painted, not generated by light engines. Artists shaded each skyscraper individually to create the illusion of depth on hardware that couldn't process dynamic shadows. It was described internally as drawing sunlight by hand. In the desert resort, the quicksand pits follow a mathematical spiral called a logarithmic curve. The code ensures that each spin of the sand matches real-world fluid motion, even though the surface is just a flat texture. Undella's mansion contains a clock frozen at a specific time, 7:43. The value matches the time the art director saved the final version of the background image before shipping. That frozen moment became eternal. Inside the relic castle, torches brighten and dim in uneven cycles. Rather than running on a synchronized timer, each flame follows a unique pattern generated by noise tables, so no 2 lights ever move exactly together. This creates the impression of natural fire flickering independently, the illusion of randomness within perfect order. The shadow length of the player character in Nimbasa's amusement park depends on the time of day in real life. The game checks the internal clock and adjusts the shadow angle to match the true solar position of your region. It's one of the most overlooked uses of real-world time in the entire series. In Reversal Mountain, the lava color palette was taken directly from slowed-down footage of molten glass. The animators wanted it to shimmer with both danger and beauty, the same contradiction that defines Unova's mix of cities and wild lands. Route 11's wind chime sound actually changes key based on how long you've been walking. Every 32 steps, it shifts up or down a half tone, creating a wandering melody that never repeats exactly. Unova's forests hide a secret behavior in wild encounters. Certain Pokémon have a 1% chance to pause before attacking, an unused animation flag left over from a bonding feature that was removed late in development. For a brief moment, they hesitate a ghost of friendship coded into battle. In Castilia's back alley, if you stand near the man who gives you the TM for rest, the camera zooms in slightly faster than usual. It's not a bug. It was meant to create an intimate moment, a close-up of kindness in a city of crowds. The Pokemon World Tournament's announcer data includes multiple unused introductions for champions that were never implemented. One of them describes a figure from Frozen Lands thought to reference the scrapped Hoenn remaster plan before Omega Ruby was chosen years later. The reflection of the Royal Unova in the water is actually a separate model rendered upside down. It rotates slightly slower than the real ship, creating a lagged reflection like time moving slower beneath the surface. If you leave your game idle in Lacunosa Town during winter, snow will eventually pile slightly higher near fences. The game remembers snow accumulation locally, resetting only when you enter a building. The effect is subtle memory turning into weight. Unova's background ambient track in the dream world contains frequencies below human hearing. They exist purely to modulate the in-game wind and give speakers a sense of space. It's the sound of air, not sound itself. The Pokemon musical's piano melody shares a chord progression with the credits of Black and White, linking performance and closure as if both express the same dream creation for its own sake. Route 6's river has reflections that ripple unevenly in autumn. Developers tied the distortion strength to the number of leaves falling on screen. The more leaves you see, the more broken the reflection nature rewriting its own symmetry. In Driftvale's market, one merchant has a hat with a moving feather. It flutters differently depending on the direction of wind in the current weather script, an aesthetic flourish invisible to almost everyone. When you visit the Pokemon Center late at night, the light behind the nurse's desk fades slightly between interactions. The animation was meant to mimic eye strain, the soft fatigue of late hours coded into the environment. The Pokemon World Tournament's floor texture has tiny concentric circles around the main ring. These circles align perfectly with sound wave frequencies of the opening battle theme when visualized a harmony between image and rhythm. In the Nakrine Museum's fossil wing, the music includes a faint ticking noise. It's not part of the rhythm. It's meant to symbolize the heartbeat of history, echoing through time. The subway lights in Nimbasa's underground tunnels dim in intervals of 16 seconds. The lighting programmer said it was to sync the pulses with the rhythm of a resting heart. When you surf across Undella Bay during winter, the waves play a slightly lower note because of temperature scaling in the sound engine. It's as if cold slows down the sea itself. In the Pokemon Center's healing animation, the circular light pattern matches the Fibonacci sequence 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. The artist designed it subconsciously and only realized later that it mirrored natural growth. The celestial projection in the planetarium room of Nakrine shows 3 faint moving dots. They correspond to star coordinates for the actual night sky above Tokyo in the year the game was released. If you speak to the old musician in Castelia multiple times, his song occasionally stops on a suspended chord unresolved. This was meant to represent the feeling of stories that never truly end, only rest. In the credits, one line of code references Dreamlink 2, a feature planned for sequel integration that was canceled mid-development. The phrase was meant to tie memories across save files, a digital version of déjà vu. Every Unova location shares a single invisible axis line running east to west. This central coordinate determines camera angles, lighting, and even sound reverb. It acts as the heartbeat of the entire map, the invisible line that divides morning from night. And when the player finally rests, when the cursor stops, and the background fades into soft blue, that heartbeat continues, unseen but constant. The region doesn't sleep so much as dream quietly, each pixel humming with stories too small for light to show. Beneath the waves south of Undella Bay lies the Abyssal Ruins, one of the most haunting places in Unova. Its music was composed entirely of choir samples, reversed and detuned, recorded in a stone stairwell to give the sense of sound struggling to escape the ocean. The melody grows quieter the deeper you go, until only low frequencies remain music heard mostly through vibration rather than air. The runic text inside those ruins is not random. It is a cipher based on the English alphabet, offset by 13 positions, meaning half of the alphabet mirrors the other. It was meant to symbolize the idea of the world above and the world below existing as reflections, perfectly opposed yet connected. When you dive through the underwater current near the ruins, your movement speed slightly increases the longer you stay submerged. The code adds momentum as time passes, a design choice meant to mimic the current, pulling you farther from the surface, a gentle reminder that curiosity has gravity. The treasure items found within relic statues and crowns were not given sell values arbitrarily. Their worth follows a ratio matching the harmonic progression of the background music, meaning each object's value increases by the same rhythm as the notes in the theme. If you resurface at sunset, the horizon briefly turns gold before fading to dusk. The color shift lasts only 3 seconds, a moment of visual warmth before the chill of evening returns. Developers said it was the ocean remembering the Sunday. In the Black City and White Forest, the population is determined by hidden values saved on your console. The system checks how many people you've traded or battled with, then grows or fades accordingly. It was Game Freak's way of giving solitude and community equal narrative weight, cities that live or vanish depending on how connected you are. When the Black City is empty, the background hum changes key from major to minor, lowering by exactly 3 semitones. The sound designer said it was to make the silence feel heavy but not hopeless, like loneliness, with memory still attached. In contrast, the White Forest's leaves brighten slightly whenever you enter from another area, resetting to full saturation as though the world inhales fresh air at your arrival. The effect repeats infinitely, giving the illusion of renewal. The nature preserve hidden in Black 2 and White 2 is not just a bonus area. Its design mirrors the first route from the original Black and White but inverted. Water where there was grass, cliffs where there were paths. Its nostalgia rewritten by time, the past seen backward through new light. The sound of the Pokeball opening in the preserve uses the same file as the one in the first generation, remastered and pitch shifted to fit new audio standards. The sound designer described it as an echo that finally came home. At the heart of the preserve stands a single large tree. Its model uses 27 separate leaf textures, an unusually high number for a handheld game. Each leaf cluster moves independently, a technical flourish meant to express how life resists simplicity. Nova's hidden grottos were inspired by forest studies of light patterns. The idea came from a photograph taken at a nature reserve in Hokkaido, where sunlight pierced through trees at random intervals. The director asked the team to create a system of chance that feels intentional, and hidden grottos became their answer. Each grotto has a hidden breathing rate that determines how often new Pokémon appear. This rate increases if your in-game time passes through midnight, as though the forest itself awakens between days. The Pokémon World Tournament Arena was modeled after a blend of classic coliseums and modern sports halls, but its floor tiles use a reflective shader made from reused ice cave assets. That's why the light underfoot always feels colder than the air above. When fighting champions from other regions, the crowd cheers slightly differently. A subtle distortion changes based on each opponent's origin, a secret sonic signature meant to connect generations of games through shared sound. Unova's memory system records more than visible achievements. Inside the save data, a hidden variable tracks how long you lingered in certain towns. This time of presence was never used for gameplay, but one developer said it was his favorite feature proof that the game quietly remembers where you felt at home. The music of Lentimus Town was the first to use dynamic reverb linked to altitude. The closer you are to the mountain edge, the longer the echo. It gives a sense of space that expands and contracts with your steps, the soundscape breathing with your movement. In the Pokémon League's antechamber, faint particles float in the air during the opening sequence. They are not dust, each one is coded as a tiny light with its own decay value, fading at different speeds. The pattern was inspired by fireflies the artist saw while commuting home one evening. Unova's Poke Centers in the sequels include a minor color change in the counter design. The trim is softer, less saturated. The art team said it was meant to reflect the passage of time, the world aging, comfort mellowing into memory. The Join Avenue manager's dialogue data includes hundreds of unused lines written as emotional backups. The team created extra responses in case of errors, but never implemented them. One reads, "Even silence has customers. If you stand in the relic passage after defeating the champion, the cave wind sound gains a deeper hum, a signal that time has passed." The game's world continues quietly, even when you don't notice. The Unity Tower, accessible only through international trades, was meant to grow indefinitely. Its data supports hundreds of floors, but the visible game caps at 100. Somewhere inside the code, those extra stories still exist. A skyscraper of friendship built sky high, but invisible. In Castelia's harbor, ships occasionally honk in the distance, though no moving vessel is visible. The sound file is randomized and plays less than 1% of the time while standing idle, making it one of the rarest auditory events in the entire game. The subway tracks in Nimbasa have engraved texture lines under their rails that spell the word motion. It's too small to see during play, but developers said it was a signature, a statement that Unova's identity was always movement. Inside the Drift Veil cold storage, the reflection of light on ice has one imperfection. A single section flickers brighter every 12 seconds, simulating a light bulb about to fail. It was the lead artist's reminder that nothing perfect stays forever. The Pokémon Center's PC animation spins faster depending on how full your storage boxes are. The logic was meant to convey the system working harder to hold your memories, though most players never notice the effort. The Royal Unova cruise lights turn off sequentially when you disembark, each cabin darkening in rhythm with the footsteps of your exit. It's a small farewell coded into the motion of leaving. When exploring the giant chasm, the snow crunches at variable pitch depending on which layer of the map you're on. This gave the illusion of density deep snow, sounding heavier underfoot than thin frost. The Elite Four chambers use architectural shapes that mimic their battle types. The Dragon Chamber forms a spiral, the Psychic Chamber a perfect circle, the Fighting Room a square, and the Ghost Hall a fractured pattern. Geometry was treated like language, a silent expression of who they are. In Black 2 and White 2, the memory of your previous save file subtly affects NPC dialogue through global flags. Some characters will use warmer phrasing or shorter pauses as if they know you. The feature was never announced, but quietly ties sequels to their predecessors. At the Pokémon World Tournament, the reflections on the floor ripple faintly when certain attacks hit, distorting even though the surface is solid. The artist said it was the world flinching at power. Unova's central theme changed lives in its smallest details. Trees bend slightly differently after storms, lights fade slower in older cities, and even wind speed varies just enough to make the air feel lived in. Every piece was crafted to remind players that stillness is temporary, that even silence shifts like breath. The memory system in Black 2 and White 2 keeps track of the last place you saved, even when loading from an earlier point. That record doesn't change until you overwrite it, meaning the world always remembers where you once stood, even after time rewinds. It's as if the region holds onto a faint ghost of your journey, unwilling to let go completely. The Pokémon Musical Hall in Nimbasa contains unused posters with faint lettering that reads, 2010 Sing Together. These textures were leftovers from an internal event celebrating the completion of the original Black and White soundtrack. The posters were never meant to be visible, but remain embedded in the walls like whispers of celebration. In the Castalia sewers, the water's reflection has an extra noise pattern applied to it, a digital ripple meant to look like oil spread across the surface. The detail came from photographs of New York's East River at dusk, chosen to mirror the industrial melancholy of Unova's urban design. When you battle in the Driftvale gym, each step on the metallic floor echoes differently depending on your position relative to the crane overhead. The reverb map calculates height as well as distance, creating a subtle acoustic realism no one ever mentioned publicly. The Pokémon World Tournament's announcer pauses for exactly 1 second between name introductions. That gap was programmed manually by the voice director, who called it a space for the crowd to breathe. In the Osiris area, the snow texture fades gradually instead of resetting. After several minutes of play, footprints begin to fill with frost again, slowly erasing your presence. The programmer said it was meant to reflect the kindness of nature, reclaiming what we disturb. Unova's Poke Centers contain a single unused background track titled Rest Long. It is a version of the healing chime, stretched to 20 seconds, with no rhythm or percussion, just notes dissolving into one another. Developers experimented with making rest take real time before simplifying it for pacing. The Pokemart clerk in Opelucid has slightly different dialogue depending on your playtime. If you've been playing for more than 100 hours, he greets you with a slower text speed, as though speaking softly to someone who has been awake too long. In the Abyssal Ruins, one of the walls hides a sequence of runes that translates to, "We are what remains." The line was not part of the original translation files, suggesting that a developer inserted it quietly after the text was finalized. The Plasma Frigate's engines hum at a specific tone, 59 Hz, a frequency close to the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. It was chosen intentionally so that the sound would blend with ordinary environmental noise, making the ship feel too real to be entirely fictional. Unova's day-night system doesn't transition all at once. The shift in light travels slowly across the skybox, moving from east to west over the course of 2 minutes. This directional fade mimics the path of the sun rather than just changing brightness instantly, giving the illusion of time's movement across land. When you stand in the Pokémon League's entrance hall, and let the music fade. A distant wind sound plays on a 10-minute loop. Within that wind, there is a low tone buried so deep that only analysis software can reveal it, a musical note in the key of D, the same key used for the series' original title theme. The signposts scattered across Unova are modeled from a single texture called Guide Home. The name reflects the internal concept that every journey, no matter how large, should always point somewhere safe. During sandstorms, the particles of dust contain faint variations in color. Some are yellow, others brown, but a few, only 1 in 100, are a pale, gray blue. That single hue was the art team's way of showing that storms hide sky, even when the world is buried in dust. The thermal effect over lava in Reversal Mountain was one of the last graphical shaders written for the DS hardware. It distorts light by a fixed value that happens to match the refractive index of real hot air. Science and artistry found harmony in code. Unova's music team composed Route 10 as a farewell piece. They wanted the melody to sound like a home theme, reimagined as an ending. Its opening notes are the same intervals as the first route of Kanto, rearranged and slowed a loop between beginnings and farewells. The elevator sound in the Pokémon World Tournament uses a mechanical rhythm based on Morse code for the word rise. No one ever hears it consciously, but the pattern repeats every 3 seconds throughout the sequence. In the nature preserve, the gentle wind changes volume based on your walking speed. Move slowly, and it quiets. Run, and it builds. The idea was to let the air follow your heartbeat, a mechanic made for immersion rather than reward. The text files for the season system include comments written by developers, like journal entries. One reads, "Autumn again, we meet." Another says, "Winter will be gentle this year." These small fragments of personality linger, reminding players that even code can carry warmth. When you visit the Celestial Tower at night, the background glow around the bell subtly expands after each ring. The radius increases by 1 pixel every time you hear the sound, as though light itself remembers the act of remembrance. The Pokémon storage box cursor in Unova drifts slightly faster to the right than to the left. The imbalance is less than 1%, but intentional, an imperceptible pull that mirrors the motion of reading from left to right, guiding the eye naturally across the grid. The bicycle theme was recorded twice, once in major and once in minor. The minor version was used only in trailers, never in-game. Its unused track still exists under the name Cycling Evening, hinting that a night variant was once planned. The small ponds in Route 6 contain ripples that expand when rain falls, even if no droplets are visible. Developers synced these animations to the sound of thunder using audio timing to control visual rhythm. Unova's architecture team designed its cities to follow a breathing grid, meaning that every third street widens slightly, giving players the illusion of open space in dense urban layouts. This principle inspired later regions' city planning as well. The Pokémon League statues at the entrance have inscriptions that are too faint to read, but the text inside the file reads, "Those who endure will rise." It was the earliest placeholder line used during design, never replaced, simply dimmed into obscurity. In the ruins near Anvil, a single NPC trainer has a unique idle pose that includes them exhaling visibly during cold weather. The breath animation plays only when the temperature variable drops below a specific threshold, a feature no other character uses. The credits sequence contains background stars that appear randomly from a dataset of 200 possible positions. Each playthrough shows a slightly different pattern, meaning no two endings are ever identical, a universe that subtly rearranges itself each time you say goodbye. The final save file checksum in Unova includes a number labeled Mood. It was used for debugging emotional states of NPCs during testing, but remains set to 0 in release versions. The fact that it's still there, hidden and unused, suggests that even code once dreamed of feelings. And when all data rests, when the system hum quiets, and the light of the screen fades to black, Unova remains, unchanged yet always shifting. In silence, its cities hum, its seas pulse, its wind sighs through code. Somewhere in that hush, between static and starlight, the world waits, not asleep, but listening. Night in Unova doesn't end. It folds inward, a soft continuation of sound and thought. The hum of Sky Arrow Bridge still carries faint wind even after the traffic quiets, each steel beam releasing stored heat like breath. The air above the water glows with the reflection of lights too small to see, the shimmer of a region that refuses to sleep. In Castelia, neon signs blink out one by one. Some take longer, flickering as if unsure whether to rest. The sky beyond the skyscrapers turns gray before dawn, and the shadows beneath the alleys stretch longer than the streets themselves. A lone sound, a bicycle chain, a boat whistle, the soft patter of rain fills the emptiness, repeating until it becomes rhythm. Route 10's theme still plays in memory long after it stops in-game. Those chords linger because they were written in open tuning, leaving the final note unresolved so it feels eternal. It's a song that never ends because it was never meant to. The Pokémon centers glow faintly even after power-down sequences. The light around the reception desk fades on a 3-second delay, an echo of comfort preserved in pixels. Developers called it the heartbeat of rest. Every machine in Unova hums softly, as if remembering the warmth of the players who once stood before it. In the forests, the morning dew forms perfectly round droplets. These were hand-drawn, one by one for each frame, a tribute to the patience of the artists. The dew never repeats exactly each morning in Unova is unique, even in code. The sound of footsteps through a cumulus square changes when you walk slowly enough. A soft shuffle overlays the default track, almost like the sound of cloth brushing stone. It was meant to simulate travelers passing one another, even when you are alone. Above Opelucid, clouds pass faster during dawn transitions. The reason lies in how the sky texture scrolls. At sunrise, the algorithm doubles its speed for one cycle, mimicking how real light overtakes shadow at the beginning of day. The lead programmer described it as the sun rushing to catch up with time. The Reflection Cave prototype once used dynamic lighting to mirror your own sprite, but the system was removed before Unova's release. Traces remain in the engine, a half-finished mirror of you that still waits in darkness. In the music for the Relic Castle, every instrument except one fades in pairs. Only a single bell chime remains solitary, ringing slightly off rhythm. The composer said it represented memory, the last echo of history, refusing to fade. When saving your game for the final time, a microsecond delay occurs before the chime begins. The screen lingers in stillness, just long enough for the console to catch your reflection. Some call it coincidence, others art. Unova's rivers were coated with subtle, random deviations in flow, meaning that no two currents are ever identical. Each time water moves, it does so with new intention. Developers said it was proof that even repetition can create freedom. In the plains beyond Nuvema, the sound of wind layers 3 separate recordings of breath, recorded by different team members. Each exhale was captured in a quiet studio late one night, then stretched and mixed into eternity. Somewhere within the ambient loop, you can still hear the sigh of a human being who once worked there, a trace of life hidden within silence. The railings on Sky Arrow Bridge are perfectly smooth, but they include invisible bump nodes to catch light unevenly. The difference is mathematical, not visual. The game calculates where brightness should pause for half a second, creating the illusion of imperfection. The Dreamworld login theme ends on a note that never resolves to the tonic key. It was written as a question, not an answer, because Unova's core idea was always continuation stories that flow forward, dreams that overlap, and hearts that never quite finish speaking. Inside the Pokémon World Tournament, the floor tiles shimmer faintly even when the lights are off. The pattern is based on microscopic reflections from a single photo of a stadium taken at midnight. The idea was to let players feel the world glowing faintly, even in absence. At the plasma frigate's bow, faint waves reflect stars across black water. The pattern repeats every 60 seconds, but one star is always missing, removed intentionally to symbolize imperfection in human ambition. The hidden grottos breathe differently after stormy weather. When the sky clears, the particle density doubles for a few moments, mimicking the world sighing in relief. The sound that plays when stepping into snow was one of the last assets ever created for the DS. It combines the crunch of sugar with softened paper, compressed into a single tone that imitates powder breaking under weight. It's not real snow, but it feels close enough to memory. The bell tower at Celestial Peak never truly stops ringing. If you wait long enough, faint resonance continues beyond the intended loop. The echo is digital feedback, but it sounds like the tower remembering its own voice. When you reach the end of the credits, the final black screen lingers for exactly 5 seconds longer than any previous game. This was the director's choice, meant as a pause, an extra breath before goodbye. Unova's world was built to move. Every gust of air, every turning gear, every ripple of water exists in motion. Yet somewhere between those movements lies stillness, a calm that lives between frames. The region doesn't sleep because it never fully wakes. It exists in rhythm, a breathing pattern written in code and color. And so the story continues quietly, unseen. The last lights of Castelia fade beneath the horizon, the rivers slow, the wind softens over the plains, the world exhales, and you with it. Somewhere in that breath, the hum of Unova carries on constant, calm, and eternal. When the last light fades from the world of Unova, the sound of the wind lingers longer than it should. It moves between the tall buildings, sliding through glass and wire, carrying faint traces of every sound that ever echoed there. The city sleeps standing up, trains idle beneath their tunnels, ferries drift without current, and the neon signs that once hummed with color now rest in their own reflections. The silence isn't empty. It feels like the region is listening to itself, as though the land still remembers every footstep that passed across it. Deep in the forests beyond Pinwheel, the canopy turns the sky into a patchwork of shadow. The ambient track that plays there contains a faint heartbeat sound layered beneath the crickets. It's not immediately noticeable, but once heard, it becomes impossible to unhear a soft, steady pulse, reminding you that the forest is alive in more ways than one. The designers called it the heartbeat of the wild, though it was never meant to be found. If you walk into a Pokémon Center after midnight, the glow behind the nurse fades to a cooler tone. The light becomes slightly bluer, the warmth replaced by the soft hue of moonlight. The change happens only once per play session, a detail that feels more like dream logic than programming. The Driftvale drawbridge creaks differently depending on how many steps you take across it. The sound alternates between two samples, recorded by dragging a metal chain across concrete. Each echo overlaps slightly, meaning the bridge sings a different song for every traveler. The water near Undella's cliffs reflects stars that do not exist in the night sky. These phantom constellations were accidentally created when developers used mirrored coordinates for the background sphere. They sparkle in patterns unseen anywhere else, constellations belonging to a world that exists only in reflection. In the sewers beneath Castelia, the sound of dripping water plays at random intervals that follow a mathematical series called a golden sequence. It ensures no drip happens at the same timing twice. The result is music disguised as nature, unpredictable, yet somehow perfect. The Dreamworld's logout animation ends on a brief flicker of color, a burst of pink, blue, and white. That flicker isn't random. It's a stylized depiction of the Unova map seen from above, compressed into a single pixel of light, a region shrinking into memory. In winter, if you stand long enough near Isurus, the snow begins to sparkle faintly at random moments. Each sparkle is an independent particle that checks the system's clock, aligning its shimmer with the console's second tick. The world literally beats with time. The Anvil Town Station's idle animation shows trains pulling in from nowhere, disappearing as quickly as they arrive. The movement has no coded origin or destination. It's a cycle meant to represent continuity, journeys happening even when unseen. The interior of the Pokémon World Tournament hides subtle symbols etched into the platform's tiles. They resemble gears, but their rotation patterns match the internal rhythm of the battle music. The entire floor quietly dances with the soundtrack, keeping tempo with victory and defeat. In Nakrene City, the old museum lights use a filter that tints color slightly toward amber. This filter was made from scans of vintage glass, chosen for imperfection. The light bends unevenly, creating soft halos around each bulb. The developer who made it said it was to make players feel warmth without seeing it. The sound of wings flapping during battles with flying types isn't always the same file. A small hidden parameter determines whether it's air or feather dominant, depending on the size of the Pokemon's model. The distinction is inaudible to most, but exists purely because someone wanted the world to feel tangible. The wind turbines outside Mistralton spin in slightly unsynchronized cycles. Each rotates faster by a fraction of a second per frame, ensuring they never align. The motion makes the skyline look alive, mechanical, yet unpredictable, a reflection of life's rhythm. When the snow melts in spring, Route 7's color palette shifts subtly toward green, but one tile near the house remains brown for a single day of in-game time. It's an intentional imperfection, a trace of winter refusing to leave. In the sound files, one track is labeled Silence. It isn't empty. It contains a recording of an actual silent room at Game Freak Studio where a microphone was left running for 10 minutes. The faint static and distant hum became the foundation for quiet moments throughout the game. It is, quite literally, the sound of nothing turned into the sound of peace. If you listen closely on Route 1, after all music fades, you might hear a faint clicking sound. It's the console's audio engine resetting itself, but it feels like the sound of the world blinking a heartbeat between frames. The Pokédex animation plays slightly faster when flipped backward in debug mode. Developers once joked that it looked like knowledge trying to escape. Unova's core idea that every motion matters appears in unexpected places. Grass bends differently in summer than in spring. The water reflects color differently at dawn than at dusk, and even the way text scrolls adjust to match the emotional pacing of each town. Every pixel moves with purpose, and so Unova continues, even after the final save, even after the screen fades and the console cools. Its rivers still flow, its skies still change, its lights still hum. Somewhere between electricity and memory, the world endures, not frozen, not forgotten, but alive in the quiet rhythm of play. The cities stretch toward dawn, the forests breathe, the player sleeps, the wind carries the sound of footsteps that no longer echo, and the bridges hum softly beneath invisible weight. The game waits for morning, but it never comes. It doesn't need to, because in this stillness, Unova exists forever suspended between endings, dreaming endlessly of motion. The gears turn slower now, the light bends softly through glass, and somewhere in that hush, the world remains awake just enough to whisper, "Good night."